Hi, I'm Emmeline Hawley, and in this video I'll be explaining how Lena Wertmuller uses mirrors in her movie Love and Anarchy to break the male gaze.
But first, I'll start with a story. I'm sure many of you have heard the story of infamous Medusa, whose terrifying gaze could turn a man to stone, and I'm sure most of you know how Perseus used the art of reflection to behead her, appearing to dominate her while standing over her lifeless and mutilated body. But what you may not know is that Medusa was regarded as a strong representation of the female Eros, or creative and erotic life force, whose gaze was feared for its ability to objectify men.
As Susan Bowers suggests, recently many artists have been returning to Medusa's roots as a confident, sexual, and wise goddess. By doing this, these artists are effectively showing that the same image that has been used to oppress women can also help set women free. In other words, they are fighting the male gaze with one of its biggest symbols.
As Laura Mulvey explains in her work Visual Pleasure in the Narrative Cinema, the male gaze is rooted in a fear of castration that often leads men to either devalue and punish women or view them in a scopophilic or fetishistic way. This leads the camera to view women as objects for men to look at. In this objectification, the woman is often seen as perfectly stylized, passive, and cut up by the camera.
Like the artist portraying Medusa, Wertmuller critiques the male gaze in Love and Anarchy by using a symbol that has been used to fuel it for centuries, the mirror. To understand how she uses fragmented views of the female body to counteract the male gaze, I'll look at two scenes in particular.
The first scene comes at 12:30 to 15:12, where the prostitute and coordinator of an assassination attempt on Mussolini, Salome, invites the assassin, Tunin, to have sex with her. As she is a prostitute, this may not sound very empowering. However, in this scene, Salome is off the clock and seems genuinely eager to use her sexuality to help the cause of killing Mussolini. The most striking image in this scene places Salome on her bed facing the camera as she is framed by 3 mirrors behind her. Besides her confidence in her placement, the image is intriguing particularly because she is central in it. If this scene were shot using Mulvey's idea of the male gaze, these mirrors would likely be the only things shown, slicing Salome's body parts up for male pleasure. However, Salome's fragmentations of her body are shown as accessories to her central image in its entirety. Rather than letting the mirrors chop her up as she lies passive like the male gaze does with Medusa, Wertmuller reimagines the male gaze as a way to enhance Salome's confidence in her sexuality as she stares directly at Tunin. The whole view of Salome in the middle gives her authority over the fragmented views of herself. In the second prominent mirror scene at 1:3:45 to 1:8:29, viewers watch chopped up sections of the prostitutes as they parade around customers entering the brothel. At a first glance, this scene appears to be Wertmuller making use of the male gaze unironically. However, once again, the presence of mirrors in this scene signals that she will be reversing expectations of the male gaze. In addition to the prostitute's ridiculous dress and makeup, the angled mirrors used in this scene amplify a reading of the male gaze as clownish, while reminding the audience that they too are viewing the women in a distorted way. This distortion is only furthered when some prostitutes are shown framed by 2 mirrors while showcasing their breasts and behinds. Like Anique Smellick writes in her book, And the Mirror Cracked, the technique of excess used in the multiple gaudy reflections we see creates a feeling of absurdity that serves to undermine the male gaze, as viewers must think about the ridiculousness of something that's been made conventional. By playing up the angles of these mirror scenes, Wertmuller makes her audience think about how the traditional cutting up of the female body on screen is not much more sophisticated.
In summary, Wertmuller uses the mirrors in these two scenes to break the male gaze.
In Salome's scene, the mirrors complement her authority and her sexuality while placing her strong gaze in the center of the action. In the brothel scene, mirrors are used at strange angles to create a visual excess that allows Wertmuller's audience to see the ridiculousness of the male gaze, as well as ponder how the cutting up of women is unrealistic.
Like Medusa's redemption from a symbol of the male gaze to an emblem of female power, the mirrors in Wertmuller's Love and Anarchy reclaim the splitting up of women's bodies as a way to attack the male gaze.